Temporarily concealed beneath the mounting tidal wave of brown water that has been Halo and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Amazon's ritualistic desecration of J.R.R. Tolkien's corpse and legacy has gone unnoticed for a short period. But now it is marketing season yet again, and so it rears its ugly malformed head, primarily in the form of our resident Black Hobbit here, who has yet again decided to make his general disdain and hatred for the character he's supposed to pretend to play clear as broad daylight in an article teaser for an Empire issue. And it starts out brilliantly with the showrunners J.D. Payne, very fitting name, and Patrick McKay agonizing over how to force hobbits into a setting where the hobbits really have no role to play whatsoever. They were faced with a conundrum. How do you conjure that world without featuring its most notable inhabitants? The hobbits, the most notable inhabitants of the Second Age of Middle-earth. Alright. The answer to this conundrum is actually really simple. You don't. Instead, you focus on the other Tolkien staples, like the dwarves, the high elves. I mean, the man made an entire language for the elves. High elves, you know. You focus on Sauron, you focus on his rise, you focus on his mentor, you focus on the fact that he was not the great evil, you focus on the mythos and the mythology of Middle-earth. But, of course, that would be far too complicated, because this is the outsider looking in. This is the anti-fan who has no real interest or care for Tolkien or the Lord of the Rings, going, what's popular? Oh, I know, the hairy-footed ones. The answer was the Harfoots. Because of course. Beings who feature in the original Tolkien lore as the Hobbits' predecessors. Well, kind of, in a way. It's not an entirely correct presentation. They are one of the variants of hobbits and the most common, but fair enough. These lot have those famous furry feet and short stature, but they haven't settled in the Shire yet. Hey, they've learned something! Because remember the last time they made an article about this, and I do believe it was Henry here, the Black Hobbit, who stated that they were living in the Shire, so at least that's sunk in. Like, no, they didn't live in the Shire back then, you dumbasses, something. Oh, and one of them, by the name of Sadok Burrows, is played by none other than Lenny Henry. Ah, yes, that was his name. Who, I don't know why they keep bringing him up, because he has a clear and genuine disdain for the universe. He doesn't give a shit. He spouts of random nonsense. He's the Peter Molyneux of this series. Again, he was the guy who said that these hobbits were living in the Shire. And he, of course, once again wishes to make it very clear that he could not care less by stating that the Harfoots are a nomadic tribe, moving with the weather and the fertility of the crops. Okay, moving with the weather I can see, but moving with the fertility of the crops? How far are you moving at this point? Crop fertility tends to be pretty steady throughout a rather large area, and I want to point out too, no, the Harfoots were not nomadic. They were not wandering all across the Middle-earth in this period. In fact, they were very stationary. That was one of their key attributes. They remained in certain areas for ridiculous amounts of time. The original Hobbit holes, for example, the predecessors of the ones we saw in the movies, were created in many ways by the Harfoots in, did they actually nail that down? No, I don't think they mentioned that, but it was in, nearby the dwarves. The Misty Mountains, I believe? Yeah, I could be wrong on that one, just right off the top of my head, but still. They were not nomadic by any stretch of the imagination. We have big caravans of wooden wheels, and we're very good at hiding things, because humans are much bigger than us and bring trouble. Aha. The nomadic Harfoots have enormous wooden-wheeled caravans, which they can apparently conceal from the locals. How? You're gonna have to use the roads. You can't just drag a cart through the bushels and undergrowth. No, never mind. You know what? Nitpicking, idiocy, general retardation, not even worth a mention, frankly. Again, like this person does not give a shit about this. I would genuinely imagine he's made up all of this, because on the actual promotional footage, you actually see what appears to be a hobbit hole, and you certainly don't see a caravan. Henry tells Empire of the Harfoot way of life, and while they're not exactly hobbits, they'll still be playing hobbit-like role in the wider tale. We're the traditional Tolkien little guy, explains Henry. I don't think Henry should be explaining anything, especially also as the traditional Tolkien little guy. You're literally a black hobbit. Traditionally, the little people in this world provide comedy, but also get to be incredibly brave. You're going to see us run the full gamut of emotions and actions in this adventure. No, the hobbits got to be incredibly brave with Frodo, with Sam, with the Fellowship. This is not a common hobbit trait. The common hobbit is not a seeker of adventure. That's what made Bilbo an outcast to begin with. This is not a natural proclivity of the species or anything. But of course, yet again, they can't simply make Lord of the Rings set in a different era. They have to try and ride on the coattails of what came before it. For Henry, and of course now we're going to move on to the real reason why a person who gives not two shits about the setting is given the role, taking on the role of Sandok Burrows is not only allowed to play in the fantasy genre that he loves. Notice that they say the fantasy genre that he loves, not the Lord of the Rings that he loves. It also offers an opportunity to help shift the needle on a world that previously hasn't tended to feature people of colour in prominent roles. And there you have it. The real reason why he is in this is because he's a willing diversity hire. And that seems to be the sole reason, as he couldn't care less about the character. He says, if you can't see it, you can't be it, which is lovely logic considering you haven't seen any black hobbits before, and yet, here we go. But hey, circularity of logic is pretty much a hallmark of the progressives these days. He says, finally in this show, kids are going to see people of color taking up space in the center of a fantasy series. We're very visible in this world, and that's very exciting. I love how he terms this, how he words this more correctly, as a conquering invader. Like, he's taking up space. He's not, fulfilling things, he's not fulfilling a role, he's not adding to the universe, he's taking up space. He's becoming visible in the center of the universe. As if he came in from the outside, because he did, and just went, mine now. I think this is mine now. I think I shall claim this for my own. This is my space now. I know I'm not supposed to be here. I know I don't fit in. I know I don't give a shit about any of this, but mine. It is a very fitting perspective, and again, it does betray the actual reasons for this. The Harfoot journey is about to begin, and the rest is just pitchy, read out stupid ass article blurby nonsense. The covers themselves are rather predictable. You've got Galadriel, which I still think Galadriel looks okay. Relatively speaking, to the Black Dwarven Princess, a direct descendant of the original dwarves, mind you, who I guess was just left out in the sun for too long, and the not at all hobbit-looking hobbit. Look at how incredibly out of place he looks. Like, you have two characters who look these kind of hobbitsy, bearing in mind that these are supposed to be far more primitive hobbits, and then you've got just Henry there, standing. Like, hi, I'm not very hobbity at all. I'm not looking forward to this show, in case you couldn't tell. Oh well, at least you guys will have fun watching me suffer through it, I guess. Will it be worse than Obi-Wan Kenobi? I hope not. Genuinely hope not. Because Obi-Wan is painful to watch, but every time Henry opens his mouth, He does seem to reinforce the idea that Obi-Wan is probably just the hors d'oeuvre to a far greater horror on the horizon. Oh well. There are always options to be had, I guess. I could just go find my katana again. Once more, I do think the Japanese were onto something with that whole, seppuku nonsense. Until next time, I've been Arch, thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.